Everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Just a quick apology, I'm really sorry that I've been sort of on hiatus for like a week. I haven't been able to upload and tweet or anything. I've been fine, I've just had some family stuff that I've got to deal with. I've also been at work quite a lot, so I've been super busy. On the subject of work, don't panic, this is just food colouring. I was making sweets in the Victorian town today at work, so I haven't been able to clean it off yet. Don't worry, I haven't committed homicide if you're wondering. Today I'm going to do a review of some short story collections that I've been reading in the past couple of months and go into a little bit more detail. I'll tell you some of my favourites, so let's get started. So firstly, just two quick mentions before I actually get into the main ones that I'm going to be reviewing. The first one that I'd like to mention is 10th of December by George Saunders. I haven't actually read every single story in this short story collection, but we studied a couple. We studied Victory Lap, Home, 10th of December and Puppy. And I enjoyed all of them. It's very interesting, he's very quirky, he's very funny. It's definitely a dry, sarcastic, disturbing sense of humour, I would say. Yes, I can't give this like an overall rating obviously, but I would just like to say, you know, if you're interested, this is something that I definitely recommend picking up. So the second short story collection I'd like to mention is A Guide to Being Born by Ramona Chapelle. I am doing this as a buddy read with Josie at Scribbles Read, and we're like so in love with this collection. We're currently just over halfway through. What we're doing is we're pretty much reading 1 or 2 short stories a day, and then we're feeding back, and we've gotten so deep into these conversations about what these short stories represent, and I don't think I've ever been so moved by a short story collection. Obviously, I can't give a full review because I haven't finished it. We haven't finished it together, and you know, we're taking our time with it and really mulling over everything. However, there is a story in here called Poppy Seed, and it is so incredible. It's about a mom and a dad and their child who is in a wheelchair and is severely paralysed and can't speak, can't move, can't talk, can't feed, can't do anything. And they have decided with the doctors that Poppy needs to have a hysterectomy as she has no need for a womb, and it is very into feminism and disability, and obviously I have a disabled dad, so it connected to me on such deep level. It is just unbelievable. There are so many incredible metaphors and representations of all sorts of brilliant topics, and you have to read it. Also, the cover is so gorgeous. It's such a wonderful book. And we've been sort of doing this thing, there are some elements that follow on in each story. So there's a part about how Poppy will have her breasts removed and the breast buds look like almonds. And then in the next short story there is a strange depiction of the mother grating an almond onto a salad, and that sort of coalition between the two is very strange and really clever, and I think this is an absolute genius piece of writing, and I haven't even finished it yet, and I already am telling you, go buy this right now. Magical realism at its absolute bloody finest. Now, on to a bit more in-depth reviews of some short story collections that I have read. So the first is Don't Try This at Home by Redmond. I will just say that I enjoyed all of these pretty much equally, but I have gone in my least favourite to most favourite, but I did enjoy all of them. This is a magical realism short story collection. It's a very gorgeous cover. There are 12 short stories in this collection, and my favourites are the title one, which is Don't Try This at Home. There's a woman works down the chip shop. When We Were Witches, and yes, Dog Years, which is Life as a Dog-Faced Girl. I think the one that most people talk about is the title one, which is Don't Try This at Home, in which the girlfriend decides to cut her boyfriend up in half and keeps cutting him in half and cutting him in half until he is basically non-existent, and all these different versions of her boyfriend get different jobs and different money, and eventually, you can imagine it doesn't go too well. They end up finding different lovers and have different relationships and different lives, and it is a very cleverly crafted story. I don't think all of them are that well crafted. I think that's something you find a lot in short story collections. There are definitely ones that you're drawn more towards. The woman that works in the chip shop is so brilliantly English. You know, a Friday tradition in England, it's Fish and Chip Friday, and the idea that this woman who works in the fish and chip shop suddenly becomes Elvis is just a wonderful idea, especially told from the daughter's perspective. I really like that. Unexpectedly, a cow softly tugged her top lip. It wasn't her usual smile. It was all Elvis, a smile that lets a second breathe. I noticed Elvis' mouth. How much she looked like him in the face. I'd never thought that if Elvis was a woman and worked in a chippy, he'd be my man. But I could hardly see my mother for Elvis now. Elvis jiggled the chips, hips tick-tocking over like an overwound clock, all because someone asked how she was. It was like the difference between being Elvis and not being Elvis was as simple as someone really looking and wondering how you feel. I would say this is a brilliant starter if you're interested in reading magical realism and short story collections in general. I think this is a really easy one to get into, and if you're into short stories and you haven't got this, why? Get it straight away. Yeah, really, really great. So the next short story collection I'm going to mention is The Rental Heart by Kirby Logan. Kirby Logan, if you don't know, wrote The Gracekeepers. There is also a short story in here called The Gracekeeper, which is the inspiration for the novel The Gracekeepers, which actually was one of my least favourite. I didn't particularly enjoy that one at all. This is actually the first short story collection that I ever read. It was recommended to me. I read this all in one sitting. It took me about an hour and a half. I read it very quickly but absorbed so much information from it. This has 20 short stories in, which for a tiny book you sort of understand that it is, again, quite short stories. However, the text is quite small. So you know, they do pack a lot in there. Again, one of my favourites is the title one, The Rental Heart, where people literally have almost clockwork hearts that they have to rent, and they have to swap them out depending on how their life is going. And I don't want to spoil anything with that because it is so eloquently and beautifully described. It just feels real. You totally buy that people have to rent hearts. A clockwork heart, it's just wonderful. The one that I always recommend for people to read is the penultimate one, which is called Origami, in which a girl is sort of obsessed with making origami. She keeps playing with her hands and she needs something to do with her hands because she's so obsessed, and eventually she just sort of falls into this pattern of making things with origami, and then at the end she opens her wardrobe and she's made an origami boyfriend, and it is just so heartbreaking. Her partner keeps saying, oh, I'll just be another night at work, I've got to stay over again and again, and eventually it just breaks her apart and she just goes crazy and she sees this origami boyfriend that she's made. I'm just going to read you the opening paragraph to Origami because I think this will completely sell you. Another paper cut. Rebecca's hands were a mess, swollen with tiny cuts, peppered with dry patches. She'd have to make sure they were all healed before Sean got home, or he would know what she'd been doing. Rebecca woke from her origami dreams, familiar shapes folding into strange forms. Eyes still sleep-glued, she ran her hands through her hair, feeling something hard and rough against her forehead. Clenched in her palm was a crumpled paper hand. But on the whole, I think this is absolutely stunning. This feels more like free verse than anything, although obviously it isn't. It's prose. It is just so excellent and makes me so happy, and it just reinstates how much I love to read. Definitely recommend this. And finally, I think you all knew this was coming, is Julie Oringer's How to Breathe Underwater. Holy shit, guys, this is the greatest thing. This collection for me focuses around what it is like to be a child, a youth, a teenager, go through puberty, go through relationships, sibling rivalries, what it's like to be unloved or loved by your parents, what it's like to live in different circumstances and religious groups and authorities, and how it feels to be in a minority, how it feels to be unloved. Yet the title is something so unrealistic, How to Breathe Underwater, and I think that especially the ones that cope with protagonists that aren't liked, it seems that trying to be liked is almost impossible as breathing underwater. I think that's what Julie's trying to get at there. I have to read you a section from my favourite, which is Note to 6th Grade Self. So this story is about a girl who's sort of giving herself a pep talk. Well, it's a note, so it's sort of reminiscent of when they used to all go to the bus and go to a dance class after school, and she is the best dancer in the class, and the boy that she likes is the best male dancer, and the girls hate her because she's talented, basically. And there's this little section here. When it is time for the boys to pick, do not bite your hangnails. Do not pull at your skirt. Watch how Patricia and Cara lean together and whisper and laugh as if they don't care whether they get picked or not. Watch how Miss Miggy brings her arms together like the parting of the Red Sea in reverse to start the picking. When the picking is over, hold your chin up and wait for Miss Miggy to notice you standing alone. She will take Zachary Booth to the shoulder and steer you over to him. Be glad you are dancing with a boy at all. Do not dignify them with a response, particularly not crying. This will be extremely difficult, of course. Try to understand what's going on. You have to dance with Eric Cassio, and he refused to act as if you made him sick. This is a threat to the social order. This is so realistic to my childhood that I was reading it on the train and I was tearing up and sort of having to look away every sort of 15 or 20 seconds of reading it because it was so realistic. Obviously I came from a dance background and I was not somebody at all who was liked in school, not even slightly, but people hated me because I could dance and I could do things like that. I think that's just awful. I would never have even fathomed to treat someone bad because they were talented at something. Stations of the Cross is another one about a girl's first Holy Communion. I was raised Catholic in quite a strict sort of Catholic household. I went to Catholic primary school and secondary school, which has shaped me. That story gets very dark because they take this boy and basically play Stations of the Cross. They get to this part where this young boy is playing Jesus and he's going to be crucified, and the aunt sees them in the field play acting crucifying this boy, and it is just horrifying, to be honest. There are only 9 short stories in this, so they are quite spread out. They're all about 20, 25, 30 pages long. You do get a really in-depth feel to each story. Every single character is completely well-rounded. Every single story has a beautiful beginning, middle and end. They twist, they turn. It's just wonderful. It's so excellently crafted. You have to read this. Even if you don't read short story collections, you have to buy this, like, please. Honestly, it's so good. And that is all of them. Thank you all so much for watching. If you're interested in me doing a short story collection, I have too many, so I can do a whole collection and I can sort of give a quick analysis of the ones that I have read and then which ones I haven't read, because there are quite a few that I haven't but would like to get around to reading soon. So please let me know about that. If you've got any comments, questions, anything to say about anything that I've reviewed, or anything that you'd like to suggest to me for some short stories, because I'll happily take them, please let me know in the comments down below. I have my unpopular opinions book tag up in the next few days, and until then I hope you have a really lovely week and I'll see you soon. Bye!